Tommy Robinson's a really interesting case because he has a very different background to most people who are campaigners or journalists. And he's a working class guy who became interested in these topics that he's interested in because of where he grew up in Luton. And he's spoken about this actually, he's actually quite an eloquent speaker about his experience and his issues. He's done these long interviews recently with Jordan Peterson, which you can find on YouTube, though there's been problems with the suppression even of those.
Yes, they've demonetised them.
Right, and hidden them effectively from being found easily. The point is that whatever one likes or dislikes about Tommy Robinson and his past, and there is stuff to dislike, I think he'd probably be willing to accept that himself. His allegation is that he's been persecuted by the establishment. He alleges that the police and the establishment have continually come up with trumped up charges and arrests in order to try to silence him on these topics that he talks about, like the child abuse gangs, the Rotherham child abuse gangs. He, to his credit, is one of those personalities who, the more he's attacked and the more he sees the establishment attacking him, actually it just emboldens him.
Fights back,
And he says it won't silence him, he won't allow them to do that. My problem is this, that if you are somebody that cares about these topics, but you're also somebody that's very concerned about showing support for someone like Tommy Robinson, that's your own choice, and I do understand it. The problem is when there aren't enough mainstream people who aren't Tommy Robinson for you to attach yourself to. I think that these are very real concerns that many people in this country have, and yet they don't feel there's anywhere they can go with them. There are no mainstream or serious politicians who they can take those concerns to. And when some do arise, even let's say Nigel Farage has touched on some similar topics, there is a massive pile-on to try to trash those people and to paint them as racist and problematic and violent or whatever it might be. So I think it's time that we should be able to have very difficult conversations, even at the risk of sometimes saying the wrong thing, and learning from one another, but taking them seriously, most of all for the victims. These poor young women now who were
not even teenagers, some of them.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it is unthinkable. And when it comes to things like the Jimmy Savile controversy, or even more recently, Hugh Edwards, we're perfectly willing to talk about child sexual abuse or child pornography. But when it comes to these horrific cases, which are ongoing and much more recent, there is this sort of blanket silence among some parts of the media and society and politicians and the commentariat and the chattering classes because they're scared it's racist. It's a bit like when the Manchester Arena bomber was spotted.
I was about to raise that.
And the security guard in I think the inquest said that he didn't want to flag this dodgy guy carrying a rucksack which turned out to be a bomb because he was scared it would be racist of him to do so. This is a massive problem that we have. We need to be more
huge problem.
More scared of terrorism and child abuse than we are of potentially being seen as racist for flagging it in certain circumstances.
See what that Ariana Grande attack was, and the one which was foiled because Taylor Swift in Vienna decided that the risk was too big, and so she cancelled the concert. And that is that Islamists don't like girls dancing. It was an attack on female freedom of singing and expression.
And
we have to understand that.
To broaden it out to this story, there is also a problem among certain cultures and certain beliefs where people have demonstrably been shown to believe that these white teenage or younger girls were somehow acceptable targets for this kind of horrific sexual abuse and torture. It's not acceptable, and I think calling it out and noticing when there is a cultural or ethnic element to it must be allowed as part of the conversation. In fact, more than must be allowed. That's a massive understatement. It's a crucial, pressing, vital, urgent conversation that we need to have, because if we can't say that our values are better than that, if we can't say that Western or British values are better than that, and if in certain circumstances issues of nationality or race come into it as well when we're discussing those issues of culture, we have a problem. The reason we are better is not because of our colour or where we come from, but it might be attached to the culture of where we grew up or the people with whom we mix, and I think we have to have those conversations.